Hello, good morning. It is Tuesday, April 21st. We are going to be graphing sinusoidal functions with different amplitudes using amp, sine, freq, shift, and knowing the four different waves. So, this is the first lesson in a new unit. We're going to kind of be building each day on the previous lesson. So this is the beginning of it. There's a lot of little components for this type of question that you need to know, but as long as you know all those little components, it comes together pretty nicely. So first things first, we need to know the four different waves. So here are the four different waves. We have sine and cosine, positive and negative. So let's take a look at these waves. Let's talk about the similarities and the differences between them. Because you're going to have these waves committed to memory. So, just looking for my pen. Here it is. All four of these waves have 5 points. So let's start with the positive sine. Positive sine starts in the middle, then it goes up, middle, down, middle. 5 points. Now, negative sine also starts in the middle, but instead of going up first, it goes down first, then middle, then up, then middle. So sine, positive sine and negative sine, they both start at the middle, middle, end in the middle. It's just that positive sine goes up first, where negative sine goes down first. Both signs start in the middle. Cosines do not start in the middle. Positive cosine starts at the max, at the top, then middle, bottom, middle, top. Whereas negative cosine starts at the bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom. All four waves start and end at the same point. Positive sine starts and ends in the middle. Negative sine starts and ends in the middle. Positive cosine starts and ends at the top. Negative cosine starts and ends at the bottom. And again, they all have 5 points. So you just need to know that the sines start at the middle. Cosines don't. Positive cosine starts at the top. Negative cosine starts at the bottom. So now we need to know amp, sine, freq, shift. So to help us remember amp, sine, freq, shift, we have our first song within one of our online lessons. I don't know where my pick went because my son always takes it. And my son, both my kids are napping right now, so I don't know if I can really play this too loud, but we'll play it a little bit loud. Amp, sine, freq, shift. 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 And amp, sine, freq, shift. All right, so let me just put the guitar down. It's just the same thing over and over again. Amp, sine, freq, shift. So what does that mean? That means that when I'm writing my equation, first comes the amp, which is short for amplitude. Then comes sine or cosine, depending on the problem. Then comes freq, which is short for the frequency. Then comes x, and then comes the shift. So it's basically telling us which component goes where. So let's define all these different things, and then we're going to put it all together for our first example. So amplitude is the distance from the midline to the min or max. So here, there's my midline, the line that goes to the middle. The distance from the midline to the min or max, and it will always be the same distance to the min as it is to the max, In this case, that would be 1. Because it's 1 unit from the midline to the max, or from the midline to the min. It's not going to always be 1, but in this case it is. The distance, it's always positive. The distance from the midline to the min or max. Frequency is how many. In general, that's what frequency means. It means how many waves from 0 to 2 pi. So we'll talk about that 0 to 2 pi. Basically, here's where 2 pi comes from. We know a full circle, a full cycle is 360 degrees. We talked about converting to radians because for whatever reason, they generally use radians for this. And that reduces to 2 pi. So 2 pi is like 360. It's 1 full cycle. That's what frequency is. It's how many full waves from 0 to 2 pi. Now, period is related to frequency, and it's the wavelength, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's the length of the wave. It's how long it takes to complete 1 full cycle. Shift is your midline. Shift and midline are the same thing. It's the y value of the midline. And then you may have to convert back and forth between period and frequency. For this lesson, you will need to find period. Period is a little formula. It's 2 pi over the frequency. So to graph, we're going to use amp sine freq x shift to find the amplitude, sine or cosine, positive or negative, frequency, shift, and then we're going to get the period by doing 2 pi over the frequency. Once we have that, we're going to draw in the midline. We're going to make dashes for the max and the min on the y-axis. Then we're going to make 4 dashes on the x-axis and put the period at the end of the 4th dash. Then we're going to draw in our appropriate curve. It's a lot of little components. We're going to go through a few, and you'll get the hang of it as we go through. So let's take a look at number 1 here. Amp sine freq x shift. I'm going to write that above it. And I'm going to list my values. Amp. Amp is what's in front of sine or cosine. There's a 1 in front of sine, so my amplitude is 1. Is it sine or cosine, positive or negative? Well, here it's positive sine because it says sine and it's positive. Freq is between the sine and the x, so my frequency is 1 in this example. Every example on this lesson, the frequency will be 1 and the shift will be 0. That's only on this lesson. We're just going to focus on the other components today. The shift is what comes after the x. In this case, it's a 0. Now I need my period. Period is 2 pi over the frequency, which is 2 pi over 1, which is 2 pi. So now I said next, and again, you can refer to those notes that I gave you. We're going to sketch in the midline, the shift, which is at 0. So at 0, I'm going to make a dashed line. My amplitude is 1, so I'm going to go up 1 and down 1 from the midline. Now I'm going to make 4 dashes on my x-axis. I like to skip a box. You don't have to skip a box. You can skip 2. You can skip whatever you want as long as each box is equally separate. And the period goes at the end of the 4th dash. And now it's time to do my graph. So it's a positive sign. So if it's positive sign, I'm going to look here. Positive sign. Let's just erase this stuff. Positive sign goes midline up, midline down, midline. Midline up, midline down, midline. And there it is. So what did I do? I used amp sine freq x shift to find the pieces of information. Amp is what's in front of the sign. That's a 1. It's positive sign, so I write positive sign. The frequency is what comes between the sign and the x. That's 1. The shift is what comes at the end. That's a 0. Period I have to find because it gives me this value. It's 2 pi over the frequency, which was 2 pi. I make my midline is my shift. I go up and down this amount. I went up 1 and down 1. I make 4 dashes on my x-axis. The period goes at the end of the 4th one. From there, I look at my 4 waves. I draw the appropriate one, and I'm done. Let's go to number 4. amp, sine, freak, x, shift. Amp is what comes in front of sine or cosine, 1. Amplitude is never negative. It's a distance. If there's a negative, what that negative is telling me is that it's a negative cosine. Freak, again, in this lesson, freak is going to always be 1. And the shift in this lesson is going to always be 0. That's not going to always be the case, but in this case, every example I give you has a 1 in front of the x and a 0 after. I need my period. My period is 2 pi over the frequency. My frequency is 1. That gives me 2 pi. So my midline is 0. My amplitude is 1, so I'm going up 1 and down 1. 4 dashes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Period at the end of the 4th one. Now it's a negative cosine, so I'm going to look back. Negative cosine starts at the bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom. So again, it starts at the bottom. Bottom, middle, top, middle, bottom. And there it is. The more you practice it, the more you get a hang of it, the better it's going to be. There's really no more twists, at least for today, because for today, your frequency is going to always be 1, and your shift's going to always be 0. Let's jump ahead to number 7. Amp, sine, freak, x, shift. My amp is what's in front of sine. 4 is my amp. Sine or cosine, positive or negative. This is a negative sign because there's a negative and it says sine. Freak is what's between the sine and the x. It's 1 in this example. Again, in this particular lesson, it's going to always be 1. And my shift is what comes at the end. And my shift will always be 0 for this lesson. I need my period. Period's 2 pi over the frequency, which is 2 pi over 1, which is 2 pi. So yes, every example in this lesson will have a period of 2 pi. And again, 2 pi is the same as 360 degrees. It's one full circle. So midline is another word for the shift. Amplitude is 4. So instead of going up 1 and down 1, I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 1, 2, 3, negative 4. 4 dashes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's time to draw the curve. It's a negative sign. So negative sign starts in the middle, down, middle, top, middle. Again, starts in the middle, then goes down. So it's going to start in the middle and then go down, not down to 1, but down to that negative 4. That's why I made these dashes. Then back to the middle, then up to positive 4, then back to your middle. And that's it. All right, let's do one more example together, and then I'm going to let you guys practice. Number 8. Amp, sine, freak x, shifts. My amp is what's in front of sine or cosine. It's a half. So we're going to go up and down a half of a box. Sine or cosine, positive or negative. It's positive cos. Freak is 1. Shift is 0. I then need my period, which is 2 pi over the frequency, which is 2 pi over 1, which is 2 pi. So my midline is at 0. Now my amplitude's a half. So it's going up a half and down a half. 4 dashes on the x-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4. Period at the end of it, 2 pi. Now it's a positive cosine. Positive cosine starts at the top, middle, down, middle, top. Again, it starts at the top. So my top here is the 1/2. Top, middle, bottom, middle, top. And there it is. So follow the procedure, and a lot of little components to it, but as long as you follow all the little components, you should be good. Follow the steps, use your definitions. I'm going to give you 2 days to complete this. Just again, we're in no rush. This is the beginning of the last unit. And that's it. I'm going to give you a quiz to complete. You can, graph paper is great. You don't need graph paper. I will give you a Google Doc. So if you want to do it in the Google Doc, you can. I'll give you a few options. So I'll get that posted in a little bit. In fact, I might get that posted tomorrow. So you can, you know, do the lesson today, and then you can do the quiz tomorrow. We'll see when I get the quiz up. And that's it. Your classwork/homework is to finish graphing sinusoidal functions. And that's all I got for you. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Any questions, reach out to me on Remind, and enjoy the rest of your day.